The weight of an unspoken fear. Hey guys, tonight we begin a journey into something that many of us know all too well. Yet few of us talk about. You felt it before, the tightness in your chest, the clenching of your stomach, that unmistakable voice that whispers in the back of your mind. What if I fail? But what if tonight we could face that fear together? Not as something to be scared of, but as something to understand. It's morning, and you wake to the hum of the world outside. You stretch, rub your eyes, and for a moment, the weight of yesterday's worries feels like it's been left behind. But then, like a shadow creeping in, you remember the pressure, it's there again, rising up, clinging to your skin. It's the quiet hum of expectations, of goals, of dreams still unfulfilled. And under it all, that fear, the one that comes when you dare to want something more, but doubt whether you're worthy enough to have it. You try to shake it off, but it's heavier than you imagined. The weight of failure looms over you like a storm cloud, threatening to break. The truth is, this fear isn't new. You've carried it for a long time, maybe even longer than you care to admit. It shows up in the smallest of moments. When you make a decision, when you open your mouth to speak, when you try something new, every time, a voice inside tells you not this time. You can't do it. What if you're not enough? You've been trying to outrun it for so long, but it always catches up. It's inescapable. So, what do you do with a fear that seems to define you? Maybe you've told yourself it's something you should be able to push aside, just be stronger. Think more positive. Keep going. But today, you feel different. Today, something has shifted. The fear of failure is here, sitting heavy in your chest, and it's forcing you to reckon with it. What if you stopped pretending it wasn't there? What if you looked it in the eye instead of running from it? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location in the comments too. I want to know where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. A story written in shadows. You're standing still, but the world around you seems to move in a blur. Each day feels like a race. And yet, no matter how fast you run, you can't escape it. The weight, that unshakable pressure to succeed, to be seen, to be validated. It's not just the fear of failing. It's the fear of being forgotten, of being irrelevant, of not being enough. Every step you take feels like a fragile negotiation between fear and desire, a tightrope walk where falling is always an option. As you think about it, you can feel the quiet shadows of past failures pulling at you. The first big mistake you made, the moment you realized you weren't as perfect as you thought. It stings, doesn't it? That memory, maybe it's not a single moment, but a collection of them. A history of failed attempts, missteps, and missed opportunities that never really leave you. You can almost hear their echoes, whispering doubts in the back of your mind. You're not good enough. You never will be. Why bother trying again? But then there's something else. A glimmer of light breaking through the cracks of your mind. Could you, for just a second, entertain the idea that maybe, just maybe, failure isn't the end? That it's not the final answer? What if it's just a chapter in the story? One that doesn't define who you are? The truth is, you've been telling yourself a story for a long time, the story of failure, of not being enough, of having to constantly prove yourself. But what if you could rewrite it? Psychologists still debate whether our sense of self-worth is truly shaped by our successes or by our ability to cope with failure. Some argue that it's the latter, that the resilience we show in the face of failure is what truly shapes our identity. Imagine what it would be like if you could embrace your failures, not as stains on your record, but as part of the process. Would you feel freer, more whole? For now, though, it's hard to shake the weight. Every step forward feels like a delicate balance between moving ahead and fearing that the ground beneath you might give way. But could that fear, in some strange way, be the very thing that drives you? Could it be a source of strength, not weakness? Maybe you've been too focused on avoiding failure, on keeping it at bay, rather than understanding it. What if failure was never your enemy to begin with? What if it was your teacher, your guide? If only you could quiet the voice in your head long enough to hear what it's trying to say. The mask you wear. You've gotten pretty good at pretending. People don't see the weight on your shoulders, the constant hum of anxiety whispering that you're not good enough, not perfect enough. To them, you're confident, successful, someone who's got it all together. You've perfected the art of the smile, the casual conversation, the act of walking into any room like you own it. But beneath that mask, beneath the polished exterior, it's a different story. You know the truth. Every time you put on that mask, every time you pretend that you're in control, the fear of failing grows just a little bit stronger. The cracks in your armor widen, letting in the shadows. And it's terrifying because if they saw the real you, the vulnerable, imperfect, human part, would they still respect you? Would they still care? You're not just afraid of failure in the big moments. No, it's the little things too. Every conversation, every decision, every choice to act or to stay silent feels like a risk. One wrong move, and the mask could slip. One mistake, and the whole facade might crumble. It's exhausting, isn't it? Keeping up appearances, pretending to be someone you're not, all in the name of avoiding failure. But the longer you wear it, the harder it is to remember who you really are beneath the mask. And then there's that moment, that tiny voice, still faint but insistent, urging you to stop pretending. What would happen if you just let go of the mask? What if you could stand there, vulnerable, unprotected, and still be enough? It's a terrifying thought, isn't it? But maybe that's where freedom lies in the willingness to face yourself, raw and unfiltered, without the need to be anything but you. Psychologists often talk about the false self, a concept in which we create a persona to protect ourselves from the fear of judgment and rejection. This false self becomes so ingrained in us that we forget who we are without it. But could that mask, in the end, be a barrier not only to others, but to your own healing? What if, by letting it go, you could find a new way to live, a more honest, more open way? What if this version of you was enough? The temptation to retreat behind the mask is strong, but as you stare into the mirror, something shifts. Maybe it's time to stop hiding. Maybe it's time to be imperfect. Maybe, just maybe, you don't need to be perfect to be whole. The enemy within. The voice is getting louder now. It's no longer just a whisper in the background, it's a constant companion. Always there, always critiquing, always questioning. You can't do this. You'll fail again. You're not good enough. What makes you think this time will be any different? It gnaws at you, relentlessly, like a dog with a bone. The more you try to push it away, the more it digs in. You try to focus on what you can do, on the small victories that should matter. But no matter what you accomplish, that voice never seems to quiet. You could win the biggest battle of your life, and it would still find a way to tell you it wasn't enough. That was luck. It says, you'll never pull it off again. Every success feels like it's built on a foundation of cracks, and at any moment, the whole thing could collapse. And it's not just the fear of failing that paralyzes you, it's the self-loathing that comes with it. The guilt, the shame. You wonder how long you can keep up the charade. How many more times can you hide behind a smile, behind a false sense of confidence, before everyone figures out that you're just one misstep away from falling apart? But then you pause. There's a flicker, a momentary glimpse of something different. What if this voice wasn't the enemy? What if it was just afraid? Maybe it's the part of you that's been hurt, the part of you that's been bruised and broken by every past failure, every missed opportunity. Maybe this voice is just a shield, a defense mechanism designed to keep you safe from the pain of not measuring up. Psychologists still debate whether the inner critic is a sign of self-preservation or an unhealthy response to trauma. Some argue that it's a product of childhood experiences. Others suggest it's a defense against vulnerability. Either way, it's become a part of you, and understanding it might be the first step in learning to silence it or at least to make peace with it. What if you didn't have to be so harsh with yourself? What if you could hear that voice without internalizing it, without letting it dictate your actions? What if the enemy within could be transformed into an ally, one that keeps you alert but doesn't hold you hostage? It's a radical thought, but just for a moment, allow yourself to imagine a different reality, one where the voice that criticizes you isn't an enemy, but a scared part of you that needs compassion. Could that shift be enough to start quieting the noise? A glimpse of freedom. For a moment, it feels like you've stepped outside yourself, like you're watching your own life unfold. From a distance, the familiar weight of failure, of impending doom, is still there. But something is shifting. A whisper, faint but undeniable, cuts through the fog. What if you didn't have to keep fighting this? What if failure wasn't the worst thing that could happen? What if, instead, it was freedom? It's a radical idea, isn't it? Freedom. You've always seen failure as the thing that traps you, that keeps you small, that condemns you to a life of not enough. But now, just for a moment, the thought starts to take root. Maybe failure could be liberating. Maybe it's the very thing that frees you from the need to be perfect, from the endless cycle of trying to control everything, from the exhausting pursuit of approval. You remember the last time you took a risk. Maybe it didn't end the way you expected. Maybe it didn't turn out perfectly. But for once, you felt alive. You felt real. There was no mask, no fear of judgment, just the rawness of trying, of being human. It wasn't failure that hurt you, it was the fear of it, the paralysis it brought, the way it kept you locked in place. The idea of embracing failure is terrifying. Of course, it means letting go of the illusion of control, of safety. But what if, in letting go, you actually found something greater? What if you could finally feel the relief of releasing the burden, of stepping off the treadmill of constant self monitoring? This isn't about resigning yourself to failure. It's about accepting that failure, when it comes, doesn't have to define you. It's just a moment, a temporary setback, something that can be learned from, rebuilt upon, and used to fuel your next step forward. Psychologists argue that embracing failure, instead of fearing it, is key to building resilience. Studies show that people who view failure as a learning opportunity tend to have stronger emotional intelligence and greater long term success. It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? But there's power in shifting your perspective, in accepting that failure doesn't signify the end, but simply the beginning of something new. What would it feel like to give yourself permission to fail? To feel the weight of that fear and realize that it's not the end of your story, it's just a part of it. Imagine how different your world could be if you stopped running from the very thing that's been holding you back all this time. It's an uncomfortable thought, but one that could unlock your freedom. The paralyzing choice. There it is again, the fork in the road. The choice that feels like it could change everything. Your heart races. The stakes feel impossibly high. And for a moment, you wonder, can I even handle this? Every decision seems to carry the weight of all your past mistakes, all your failed attempts, all the moments you've regretted. What if this is just another chance to fail? What if you make the wrong choice again? You stand at the edge of possibility, staring at the unknown. And yet the fear of failure grips you tighter than ever. It feels like the world is holding its breath, waiting for you to choose. But the longer you stand there, frozen, the more you feel that paralyzing pressure. It's like you're being asked to choose between safety and risk, comfort and growth, and all you want is to be certain, to be sure that you're doing the right thing. But there's no guarantee, no map, no instructions. You start to second guess everything. The path that seemed so clear just moments ago now feels like a labyrinth. If you take one step in the wrong direction, it might lead to another failure, another disappointment, another heartache. And that's the worst part, isn't it? The thought of not only failing, but failing again. The sting of yet another loss, another reminder that you're not enough. It's easier to stay where you are, isn't it? Easier to stay stuck in the safety of the familiar, the predictability of mediocrity. At least in that place, you can pretend the fear of failure doesn't exist. You can tell yourself that you're fine, that everything is okay, even though deep down, it's not. You've convinced yourself that inaction is somehow less risky than failure, but is it? There's a strange kind of comfort in the paralysis. Isn't there? A soothing numbness in doing nothing at all. But you know that it's also suffocating. What are you really afraid of? The failure, or the idea that you're not even trying. The thought nags at you, gnaws at your insides. You wonder what would happen if you let go of the fear for just a second. What would it feel like to take that step, to move forward, even without knowing what awaits you on the other side? Psychologists often discuss the fear of choice as a type of cognitive paralysis that stems from our need for certainty. The more uncertain the outcome, the more difficult it becomes to act. It's a protective mechanism, designed to keep us from making potentially painful mistakes. But what if the very act of choosing, even if it's the wrong choice, was what helped you grow? What if it wasn't about getting it right every time, but simply about moving? What if, right now, this moment, the only thing standing between you and the life you want is the act of choosing, not the perfect choice, just a choice? So, what will it be? Will you keep standing there, paralyzed? Or will you take that first step into the unknown and the echo of what could be? It's strange how your mind works. The moment you take a step, any step, the world suddenly feels bigger, more expansive. It's as if you're no longer just reacting to life, but actively shaping it. Yet, here you are, still standing, caught between two forces. One side of you wants to leap into the unknown, to finally release the grip of fear that's kept you stagnant for so long. The other side, though it's rooted in something deeper, something that can't be easily explained. It's as if you're stuck listening to the echoes of what could have been, the what ifs that swirl around in your mind like a storm. What if you had chosen differently in the past? What if you hadn't made that mistake? What if you had been braver, bolder, more decisive? Those echoes haunt you, don't they? Every time you think about moving forward, you hear them loud and clear, reminding you of the potential missteps, the missed opportunities. It's as if the past is constantly clawing at your future, trying to pull you back into a place of inaction, of doubt. But here's the thing, those what ifs don't really exist. They're illusions, a product of the mind trying to rewrite history, to undo what's been done. The truth is, you can't go back. You can't change the past. All you have is the present, and the present right now. This moment is all you need to begin. The thing about fear is that it has this incredible ability to distort reality. It amplifies the consequences of failure, making them seem far worse than they actually are. And in doing so, it keeps you trapped in a cycle of self doubt, of endlessly analyzing every possible outcome, as though the fear of what might happen is worse than any actual failure. But what if you started looking at those what ifs as opportunities instead of burdens? What if, instead of hearing the echo of past mistakes, you could hear the potential of what could be? What if you could embrace the unknown, not as something to be feared, but as something to be explored, something to create? Psychologists talk about the concept of counterfactual thinking, which is the process of imagining different outcomes to past events. It's a natural part of human cognition, but it can be paralyzing if it's allowed to dominate your thinking. What if I had done this differently? What if I had acted sooner? The truth is, this line of thinking often prevents us from moving forward because it keeps us fixated on a reality that's impossible to recreate. The only way to break free from it is to stop replaying the past and start living in the now. Imagine, for a moment, if you stop letting the echoes of the past dictate your future. What if, instead of being haunted by the what could have been, you embrace the what could be? What if this moment, this very choice, was all you needed to start something new, to build a future that's free from the chains of what if? What if the greatest thing standing between you and your potential is the belief that your past mistakes define you? The courage to look inward. It's so easy, isn't it? To look outward for answers, to search for validation from others, to measure yourself against what others have done or what you think you should be. It's almost like a game you've been playing for so long, trying to check off boxes and meet expectations that you lose sight of one crucial thing: yourself. But as you sit with that thought, you realize something important. Everything you've been searching for has always been inside you. It's funny how the hardest battle is often the one you fight within yourself. You've spent so much energy focusing on external outcomes, on proving your worth to others, that you've never really looked inward at the true source of your strength. It's not about what you do, it's about who you are, how you define yourself, and whether you can accept your own imperfections as part of your humanity. You've always been running, haven't you? Running from failure, running from fear, running from judgment, from criticism, from the very things that could help you grow. But what if the real growth lies in sitting still, in facing yourself without flinching, without the distractions of the world? The fear you feel, it's not just about what others might think of you, but about how you think of yourself when you're alone, when no one's watching. The scariest part of facing failure isn't the actual failing, it's what it might reveal about you. What if you're not as strong as you thought? What if you're not as capable? What if, deep down, you're not enough? These questions are the ones that keep you up at night, aren't they? But here's the thing: you don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to be willing to see yourself as you are and still, in that moment, choose to be kind to yourself. Psychologists often refer to this as self compassion, the practice of treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a friend. When you fail, when you fall short, it's easy to slip into harsh self judgment, but self compassion can shift that narrative. It's not about ignoring your flaws, but acknowledging them without letting them define you. It's about giving yourself permission to be imperfect and understanding that in that imperfection, you're still worthy of love, respect, and grace. The world may never stop asking you to prove yourself. But what if you could choose to stop proving anything? What if the only approval you needed was your own? What if you could sit with your failures, your mistakes, and your shortcomings, and accept them as part of who you are, not as reasons to feel less, but as opportunities to grow, to learn, to rebuild? Imagine, for a moment, that you're enough, just as you are, no accomplishments required, no standards to meet. What would change if you could give yourself that gift? The moment of rebirth. You stand on the precipice now, and the world feels different. It's as if you've shed something, like a heavy coat that you've been wearing for years, without even realizing how much it weighed you down. For the first time, the air feels lighter. You're standing in the same place as before, but something inside you has shifted. The fear of failure still lingers, but it no longer feels like an insurmountable mountain. It feels more like a challenge, a stepping stone, not a wall. It's almost hard to believe that, just a short time ago, you were paralyzed by the weight of expectations, by the fear of not measuring up. But now, there's something different in the way you move through the world. You've started to see failure for what it truly is, a necessary part of growth. You've learned that falling doesn't mean you've failed. It just means you've tried. As you reflect on your journey so far, you realize that this transformation wasn't about avoiding failure. It was about embracing it. It wasn't about hiding behind a perfect mask or pretending you had everything figured out. No, it was about standing in the face of the unknown, of risking everything to be yourself. And in that vulnerability, in that openness, you found your strength. You might have thought that failure was a death sentence, that each misstep would erase your worth. But now you see the truth. Failure isn't the end, it's the beginning. It's the moment of rebirth, the point at which you can redefine yourself, learn, grow, and come back stronger. It's the moment where you realize that every setback was just another opportunity to rise. Psychologists talk about post traumatic growth, the idea that individuals can experience profound personal transformation following adversity. The concept suggests that rather than being defined by our failures, we can transcend them, learning to live more fully, more authentically. After facing hardship, in many ways, the failure you feared so much was never the thing to be avoided. It was the catalyst that allowed you to break free from the chains of your own self imposed limitations. And now, as you look forward, the future doesn't feel so intimidating. Sure, you can't predict every outcome. Sure, you might still stumble along the way, but it doesn't matter. You've learned something invaluable. Failure is no longer your enemy, it's simply part of the journey. And this new mindset, it's your true freedom. You realize that you don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You don't need to be flawless to be worthy. All you need is to be willing to try again, even when the odds feel stacked against you, because you know, deep down, that you are enough. You always were. So, what will you do next? Will you step boldly into the future? Or will you hold back out of fear? The choice is yours. But whatever you choose, you carry with you the knowledge that failure no longer holds power over you. The unseen strength. You've made it this far, and you're beginning to understand something fundamental. Strength isn't always loud. It's not always visible. It doesn't always show up in the form of grand victories or impressive feats. No, the real strength is quiet, sometimes even invisible, hidden in the small, subtle moments. The moments when you didn't give up, when you didn't let fear win. The moments when you got back up, dusted yourself off, and kept going, even when no one was watching. It's easy to forget that, isn't it? When the world around you is busy measuring success by outward achievements, it can feel like you're not doing enough. But now, you're starting to see things differently. The real progress wasn't about how far you've come externally, it's about how far you've come internally. How many times you resisted the urge to give up. How many moments you chose to believe in yourself, even when the odds seemed stacked against you. You look back on the struggles, the doubts, the quiet battles you fought with yourself, and you realize something. Each one of those moments, no matter how small, was an act of strength. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. The fact that you're still here, still moving forward, still trying, is proof enough. This is the kind of strength that no one can take away. It's the kind that isn't measured by applause or accolades, but by the quiet persistence that keeps you going in the face of adversity. The kind that comes from within, from a deep well of resilience that you didn't even know you had. You've built it over time, through every failure and every triumph, through every moment of doubt and every moment of hope. Psychologists often talk about grit, the perseverance and passion for long-term goals. Even in the face of challenges, studies show that grit is a better predictor of success than talent or intelligence. It's the ability to keep going, even when the road ahead is uncertain or difficult. What you've cultivated, in so many small, unnoticed ways, is grit. And that, more than anything, is your greatest strength. You're not the same person you were when you first started this journey. You've grown, evolved, and built something inside of you that can't be measured by external success. You've built resilience. And that's what will carry you forward, no matter what happens next. So, what does this strength look like now? It's quieter, perhaps less flashy, but it's undeniable. It's the strength that comes from accepting who you are, from knowing that failure doesn't define you, and from choosing to keep moving, even when the path is uncertain. You are stronger than you realize. The price of perfection. As you move through this new chapter, you begin to notice something that was always there but had been hidden beneath the layers of self-doubt and fears. Your relentless pursuit of perfection, it's subtle at first, almost like a whisper, but over time, it grows louder, more noticeable. The constant striving, the pressure to get everything right, to never make mistakes, it's exhausting. And when you really sit with it, you realize something important. This obsession with perfection has cost you far more than you've ever realized. You can feel it in your bones now, the way it drains you, the way it steals your peace. Every time you miss the mark, every time you fall short of your ideal, there's a crushing weight of self-judgment that follows. It's a cycle you've been stuck in for so long. You set high expectations. You push yourself to meet them. And when you inevitably fall short, you feel like you've failed not just in the task, but in your very self worth. But here's the truth: perfection doesn't exist. Not really. It's an illusion, a standard that was never meant to be reached. It's like chasing the horizon, always just out of reach, no matter how far you run. And yet, somehow, you've spent so much of your life trying to reach it. You've measured your worth by how well you meet these impossible standards. And in doing so, you've sacrificed your peace, your joy, and your sense of self. Psychologists often refer to the paradox of perfectionism, the idea that the pursuit of perfection can actually reduce achievement and increase anxiety. Paradoxically, the harder we push ourselves for perfection, the more we set ourselves up for failure. Perfection is a moving target, and the constant pursuit of it only breeds frustration and discouragement. As you let this idea settle, you start to feel a shift. What if you could let go of the need to be perfect? What if you could allow yourself to be flawed, to be human, to make mistakes without it meaning you were less than enough? The thought feels liberating, like a weight lifting from your shoulders. This doesn't mean that you stop striving for excellence or that you stop caring about doing well. It simply means that you free yourself from the self imposed prison of perfectionism. You give yourself permission to fail, to be imperfect, to be real. Imagine the freedom in that, to do your best without the pressure of having to be perfect, to let go of the fear of judgment, of not measuring up, to embrace your flaws, knowing that they are part of what makes you uniquely you. What would it feel like to stop holding yourself to an impossible standard? What if you could redefine success not by how flawless you are, but by how resilient, how brave, how real you are in the face of imperfection? The quiet resilience of vulnerability. There's something powerful about vulnerability, but it's also terrifying, isn't it? You've spent so much time trying to protect yourself from failure, from judgment, from rejection. You've built walls strong, sturdy walls to keep others out, to shield yourself from the pain of not measuring up. But somewhere along the way, you've realized that in trying to protect yourself, you've also cut yourself off from the very things that could help you heal. Connection, compassion, authenticity. Vulnerability isn't weakness. In fact, it's one of the most resilient things you can offer. It's the courage to show up as you are, without the armor, without the pretense, without the fear of being judged or misunderstood. It's the ability to stand in the midst of your imperfections, your failures, and say, "This is me, and I'm okay with that." You feel a stir within you, a quiet recognition. The walls you've built have kept you safe, yes, but they've also kept you isolated. And you can't keep living this way. Can you? Always hiding parts of yourself, always holding back for fear of rejection? The world is waiting for you to step into your truth, to let go of the image of perfection you've been holding up, and to show up as your true, messy, beautiful self. Psychologists call this self disclosure the act of sharing your innermost thoughts, fears, and experiences with others. It's an act of bravery, of letting go of control, of trusting that, even in your vulnerability, you are still worthy of love and acceptance. Research shows that vulnerability is a cornerstone of deep, meaningful connections. It's through being vulnerable that we create the bonds that sustain us, the relationships that help us heal. And yet, even now, the fear lingers, doesn't it? The fear that if you show your true self, you'll be rejected. That if people really knew the depth of your insecurities, they'd walk away. But here's the thing: the people who matter, the ones who truly care, will never walk away. Vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a bridge that connects you to others in a way that perfection never could. Imagine what would happen if you stopped pretending to be perfect. What if, instead, you allowed yourself to be vulnerable, to be real, unfiltered, raw? What if, in that moment of truth, you found the deepest connection, not just with others, but with yourself? What if vulnerability was the key to unlocking a new sense of freedom, of acceptance, of peace? This is where real growth happens. In the willingness to stand in your own truth, without fear of judgment, in the strength to be seen, just as you are, the freedom in letting go. It's strange how much of your life has been shaped by the things you've been holding on to, the expectations, the judgments, the regrets, all of them like invisible chains, binding you to a past that no longer serves you. You've tried to move forward, tried to find peace, but each time you take a step, it feels like you're dragging this heavy weight behind you. But now, as you sit with this realization, a new question rises within you. What would it look like to let go? You've spent so much of your life trying to control outcomes, trying to avoid failure, trying to fit into a mold that's never really been yours. And in doing so, you've closed off parts of yourself, parts that were wild, free, and untamed. You've been holding on to a version of yourself that you thought you were supposed to be, but it's not who you truly are. It's who the world wanted you to be. But now, As you take a deep breath, you feel a shift. The thought of releasing all of this, the expectations, the fears, the judgments feels oddly liberating. It's not easy. Of course, there's a voice in your head that tells you that letting go means losing control, that it means stepping into the unknown. And that's terrifying, isn't it? But as you sit with it, you realize that not letting go is what's keeping you trapped. It's the resistance, the constant holding on, that has kept you from experiencing the peace you crave. What if letting go isn't about losing anything at all? What if it's about gaining freedom? Freedom from the need to be perfect, from the fear of failure, from the belief that you are defined by your past mistakes? What if it's about finally embracing the messy, imperfect, beautiful human being that you are right now? You remember something you once heard? The tighter you hold on, the more it slips through your fingers. It was about love, but it applies to everything, doesn't it? The harder you try to control your life, the more you resist the flow. The more you hold on to what you think you need, the more it eludes you. True peace comes when you let go, when you surrender to the uncertainty of life and trust that you are enough, just as you are. There's a profound power in surrender. It's the act of releasing your grip on expectations, on perfection, on fear, and allowing yourself to just be, to step into the unknown, to embrace the uncertainty, and to trust that life will unfold as it's meant to. It's the ultimate act of faith. Faith in yourself, faith in the process, faith in the journey. Psychologists refer to this as acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, which teaches individuals to embrace their emotions, thoughts, and experiences without trying to control or suppress them. The idea is that true mental health comes from accepting life as it is uncertain, imperfect, and ever-changing, and committing to living authentically, regardless of what you can or can't control. So, as you stand here, at this moment of decision, ask yourself, what would it look like to let go of the need to be perfect? What would it look like to stop holding on to the fear of failure? To stop holding on to the past? To stop holding on to the judgment of others? The answer feels liberating, doesn't it? To let go of it all and just be, to trust that in this very moment, you are enough. The power of new beginnings. It's easy to think of new beginnings as something grand, something clean and obvious, like stepping into a fresh chapter with a brand new pen. But the truth is, new beginnings are often much quieter, much messier. They are often not born out of clear, perfect moments, but out of small, almost imperceptible shifts. The way you breathe deeper now, how your heart feels a little lighter, how the fear that once gripped you so tightly has started to loosen its hold. You're standing at a crossroads, aren't you? You've reached a point where you can't go back to the person you once were. And deep down, that you don't want to. That person was stuck, trapped in a cycle of perfection, fear, and self-doubt. But the person standing here now, the one who has learned to embrace failure, to redefine success, to let go of the weight of perfection, that person is free, free in ways that words can barely describe. And while the road ahead is still unknown, you're no longer afraid of it, because you've realized that every step forward is a new beginning. You start to recognize that new beginnings are not about escaping your past, but about making peace with it. You don't need to erase your mistakes or pretend they never happened. You don't need to run from your failures. Instead, you can choose to embrace them, to learn from them, and to let them be the foundation of who you're becoming. There's a quiet wisdom in that, knowing that you don't need to be someone else to start anew. You don't need to reinvent yourself completely. You simply need to let go of the stories you've been telling yourself about who you should be, and start telling the truth about who you are. And that's where the real freedom lies. Psychologists refer to this as self-acceptance, the ability to embrace all parts of yourself without judgment, without trying to change who you are. It's the act of recognizing that you are worthy and valuable, regardless of your past or the mistakes you've made. Self-acceptance isn't about settling for mediocrity. It's about loving yourself through the messy, imperfect process of growth. It's about choosing to start fresh, every day, with kindness toward yourself. The beauty of new beginnings is that they don't come with a script. They don't come with guarantees. There is no map to follow, no checklist to complete. But that's what makes them so powerful, because you get to decide what they mean. You get to decide who you want to be. And this time, it's not about doing it perfectly. It's about doing it authentically. What will you create now? With this newfound freedom, how will you approach your journey, knowing that you don't have to be flawless? How will you step into this new chapter, with all of your scars and imperfections, and find beauty in them? The answers are up to you, and that's the most liberating part of all. The power is in your hands. The power of a new beginning, the quiet peace of acceptance. And here you are, at the edge of it all, standing in the quiet space where you've learned to accept who you are, without the need for validation or perfection. It's a peaceful stillness, one that doesn't demand anything from you. not even progress. You've come to understand that peace doesn't come from achieving something grand, or from avoiding failure, or from measuring yourself against some external standard. No, the peace you're finding now comes from simply being present. From being enough without the weight of expectation. It's a gentle, almost unnoticeable shift, like the soft change in the air when a storm has passed, and the world feels just a little bit calmer, a little bit clearer. You realize that for so long, you've been fighting against the very thing you needed: acceptance. The acceptance that you, in all your imperfection, in all your messy human glory, are worthy, worthy of love, worthy of success, worthy of rest. And as you sit with this newfound peace, something beautiful happens. You forgive yourself. All the mistakes, all the times you've fallen short, all the moments where you thought you weren't enough, none of them define you anymore. They are just part of the journey, and you no longer carry them as burdens. You let them go, gently, as you would release a breath that's no longer needed. There is freedom in this freedom in knowing that you don't have to be perfect to be whole. Freedom in understanding that failure is just another word for growth, and that each setback is an opportunity to learn, to rise again, to become more of who you truly are. It's not about being flawless or even being good enough by someone else's standards. It's about being real, being you, and realizing that you are all you've ever needed to be. Psychologists often speak of mindfulness, the practice of being present with your emotions, your thoughts, and your experience without judgment. Mindfulness is about accepting things as they are without trying to change or fix them. It's about embracing the present moment, just as it is, and finding peace in that acceptance. In many ways, this is what you've been learning all along: the ability to sit with yourself in all your vulnerability and still find peace. And now, as you sit here, you can almost hear a quiet voice within you. You're okay, not in some far off, distant future, not when you've achieved the perfect life, not when you've proven yourself enough. But right now, just as you are, you're okay. You've always been okay. There's a soft, knowing smile that forms on your lips as you realize this. No more striving. No more chasing after something that will never come. Just a deep, gentle sigh of relief. You've arrived. You're home. And this home is yours, just as it is. So take a moment now. Breathe deeply. Let go of any remaining tension, any last bit of doubt. You are enough. You always have been. And with that truth, you are free to move forward in peace, knowing that no matter what comes next, you'll face it with all the strength and resilience you've cultivated in all the messy, beautiful ways that you are. And as you drift into this moment of true acceptance, remember, failure is not your enemy. It is your teacher, your guide, and in its lessons, you found the freedom to be exactly who you are. End of script. Sweet dreams.